and you're watching the fifth quarter. It's our Friday night wrap-up show where we bring you all the things that happened around the greater Houston area. And I can't believe it. It's the last week of district football. Some teams ended their seasons last week. Some ended tonight. I feel like just yesterday we were bringing you the first week of the fifth quarter, the first week of season, where we had all of those big games, a North Shore Katy rematch, Atascocita just blowing teams out, Fort Bend Travis putting their names on the map. Just an absolutely crazy season that we've had so far. And, it's weeks like this week, it's weeks like we've had this season that make Texas high school football so amazing to watch. Can't believe it is week 11 and we've had some district crowns won tonight. We'll start with Porter New Caney. We'll start with Porter New Caney. This was supposed to be our game of the week. We weren't able to make it out to this game. Actually, we had a couple of things happen on our end here at Inside High School Sports, but we want to report on this game as New Caney has taken their fourth straight district title and they win against Porter 37-0. We're going to move to Atascocita as they take on Humble. Humble gave Atascocita a game. Atascocita won 42-7, but Humble was only the second team in Atascocita's entire season to hold them to under 60 points. But Atascocita wins outright their district. George Ranch and Pearland, the Oilers and George Ranch went head-to-head, and Pearland won. Not really sure if they won the district title with this one, but they win tonight 49-7, and their end of the season record as they are about to go into playoffs is 8-2. Great night from the Oilers. Cy Creek and Cy Fair. Cy Fair is looking like the team from 2017 that won the state championship. They're looking like that right now. Fantastic team. They win 41-7. And then we've got Maid Creek, Morton Ranch. Maid Creek won this game 47-27. They are playoff bound. They finished the regular season with only one loss, and they will be playing a Fort Bend team in the playoffs. But Maid Creek wins 47-27 tonight over Morton Ranch, who is a very, very solid team. We also have a little bit of a upset tonight as Angleton defeats Friendswood and adds their third loss to the season in district. It looked like that district was going to, or that 10-5A district was going to be Shadow Creek, Friendswood, Foster, Hightower, but with Angleton getting this one, we'll see where they fall after that. We will have more on that with Matt and Robert in the next two segments. But a big week of Texas high school football, a huge week of Texas high school football as district is starting to wrap up. Playoffs start next week. We'll have some matchups and some potential matchups for you in the next two segments as we get to talking about that. But another huge week of Texas high school football. Some big surprises on the board. But who doesn't love it? Playoffs are about to start. We'll have more on playoffs and what happened in this week around the greater Houston area right after these messages.
Don't forget to catch our extended coverage of the high school football season each week on The Warm-Up, presented by your local Houston area Geico agents. We will get you ready for all the action this Thursday on all our social media outlets.
And we are back with a special surprise. We have the Inside High School Sports Insider, Matt Harris, actually on set with us. I mean, not technically on set, but on set in spirit, as I have him on the FaceTime, right behind me. Matt, what's up? I wish I could I feel like I can talk to you almost face to face right now.
What was that? Sorry.
I said I feel like I can talk to you almost face to face right this second.
I know.
Okay, Matt. So, district is over. Teams are out of it. We've got playoffs next week. Let's talk a little bit of football. So, some districts that we've been paying a lot of attention to are the 10-5A, 15-6A, but we're going to kick it off with that 10-5A district. Friendswood took a loss tonight, and they're sitting second in that district. Kind of, how does that loss to Angleton affect that district, if at all?
The loss to Angleton is not going to matter. McCready's going to win that 7-0. Friendswood beat Hightower, so they'll be second 5-2. Hightower in third. And then Richmond Faulkner up 4-4. Angleton also 4-30. Foster has the head to puts him in the playoffs ahead of him.
Okay, Matt, another district that we were paying a lot of attention to was the 15-6A district. Klein Kane came out of nowhere and just kind of took that district by the reins. I know that they didn't win the district, but they surprised us all as they made the playoffs in a very, very tough 15-6A district. But kind of how is that district lining up when now that season is coming to a close?
So Klein Oak and Klein Collins are going to be in the one spots. Actually, Klein Collins is because of Klein Oak's loss last night. But you have 2 spots left between Klein King, Conroe, and the Woodlands had a really easy game against Klein Forest. They won that. The game was Klein Oak going up against Klein King. Klein King wins this game, they're in. They win, they shot Klein Oak, they won, they got into the playoffs. A lot of thank you for this. A district rise, a little surprised to see Conroe finish 5th, but big props to Klein King for really closing the season. So they survived a late loss and qualified in the playoffs.
So, were there any other districts that you were looking at that we saw this weekend that you kind of were surprised by the final result of the game?
I don't know about that, but 10-5A Division 2 interests me a lot. You've got a little bit of teams from outside of our coverage area, College Station and Consolidated, Brian Rutter, teams that we look to Cleveland that we don't know a lot. But we have Rosenberg Lamar Consolidated in this district, a team that was winless, I believe, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And they were 8-2, 5 in the district. And I'm not sure. 3 teams finished 5-2. Lamar Consolidated is over third in that district. And if they beat I'm not sure if they beat. They lost to Huntsville, so third in that district. But a very impressive year for Coach Rick LaFavor's team, and they finished at 22, going into the playoffs, number 3 in that district.
Well, Rick LaFavors and I are friends because we both went to TCU. He's a little bit older than me, though, but Riff Rambazu. So now that we've got season coming to a close, playoffs are about to start. What are you excited to see as we move into playoffs?
I'm excited to see if Shadow Creek make it back to state or not. This is a team that is now 26-1, undefeated in the regular season. Never watched the last year. I think it'll be real interesting to get back this year. And they've got a really talented team. I like them to do it.
Well, Matt, we are so excited that playoffs are about to get started, and we will talk to you next week as round 1 goes off. But thank you for joining us here on the 5th quarter, and when we come back, we'll have producer Robert Sheik on air with us.
Watch Inside High School Sports to catch this week's Chevy Spotlight, brought to you by your Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest Chevy dealer to test drive their award-winning products.
And we are back with the producer of Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports, Robert Sheik. Robert, it's over. District is over today.
I know. Some crazy stuff. It's just what a regular season it's been. And we can get a little bit more into some of our takeaways from the season in a minute. But very fun regular season. Some programs we hadn't heard much from lately or heard of in general because they're new programs with some big seasons and really fun regular season and ready for the playoffs.
I mean, one of those big programs was Klein Kane. Because
Yeah.
they had a huge win last night.
Yeah, and we'll have highlights in tomorrow morning's show of Klein Cain's big win over Klein Oak. Klein Oak was trying to win the district title, and that district, we've been talking about it all season on this segment. What a district it's been, and so much respect for Klein Cain, second year of the program, to survive that district. It's one thing to make the playoffs in your second year, but to do it in that district.
That district's crazy.
I know. I mean, you look at the other programs that are going to the playoffs out of that district. It's Klein Collins, the Woodlands, and Klein Oak. Like, those are powerhouse programs, and Klein Cain is right there with them. Klein Cain beat the Woodlands and beat Klein Oak this year. A couple of losses to some teams that didn't make the playoffs out of that district, but Cain survives, and the Hurricanes, the storm is still going. It hasn't reached landfall yet, I guess.
Some other things that we were talking about, Matt and I had kind of talked about in the last segment, was that Friendswood lost tonight to Angleton, but that really doesn't mess up that district too much in that 10-5A.
Yeah, it really doesn't shake things up. Not a whole lot to play for Friendswood tonight, and I didn't see much of, or know necessarily who played for Friendswood, if maybe some of the starters or key players sat out, since there wasn't really a whole lot. Friendswood couldn't win the district title, was already in the playoffs, so maybe some coaches like to use that spot sometimes as a bye week of sorts, kind of like week 17 in the NFL, for teams that have already made the playoffs and don't have a whole lot to play for.
Squad.
Yeah, you can give some guys a little breather and have a fresh team, for the first round of the playoffs, which, obviously everything ramps up a whole other level next week.
Most definitely. And so what were some of the surprises as districts come to a close? What's some surprises that you've had besides the two teams who in their second year are making it to playoffs again, or making it to playoffs for the first time?
There were just so many of those second year programs. I think, caught, maybe me a little bit off guard. Early in the season, we weren't necessarily expecting, okay, we need to get a camera out to some Klein Cain games. We need to get a camera out to some Bridgeland games. Katy Paetow. All those teams are now in the playoffs. Katy Paetow loses tonight. Paetow loses tonight to Lamar Consolidated. Lamar Consolidated is back in the playoffs for the second year in a row. And that's
a good team right there.
Yeah,
right
it
now.
is, and it's a very cool story because Lamar Consolidated a couple years ago went 0-9, or 0-10 in 2016 or 2017. And now the Mustangs are back in the playoffs for the second year in a row. Very cool story there. It's programs like that. Dobie. We'll have highlights of Dobie's win over Pasadena Memorial on Thursday night in this week's show. Dobie goes 9-1 this year. Humble with a big season. Humble's back in the playoffs. So many programs like that. Clear Falls is another one that we've talked about here on the fifth quarter of this season. Clear Falls is, going to the playoffs for just the second time in school history. Those are really cool stories because those are not things you expect, at the start of the season. Those aren't programs that we necessarily expected to still be talking about here in Week 11. So it's very cool that, sometimes
shaking it up a little bit.
The apple cart gets shaken up a little bit, and that's fun. It's fun to see some fresh blood out there. Yeah, for sure.
We like shakeups here in the fifth quarter. Speaking of Humble, they actually held Atascocita. They lost to Atascocita, but they held them to a pretty good game. They only allowed Atascocita 42 points. That's only second time this entire season that's happened.
That's impressive in its own right. Yeah,
I looked at that and I was like, dang, okay, that's a really good score. But what does that say about this Humble team? As we haven't been out there as much, but we're going to start going to more Humble games now that they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, we had Humble in last week's show. Humble's win over Kingwood, and I was really impressed. That's definitely, and I'm not sure exactly who Humble was going to play in the first round of the playoffs and moving forward from there, but that's a program that you certainly don't necessarily want to see that name Humble pop up in the first round if you're one of the Blue Bloods and expecting to make a deep run, because Humble can give you a game for sure, and Humble could make some noise. There's so many of these teams we talked about can really make some noise in the postseason. There's the Blue Bloods are all, the ones we expected at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
The handful of elite programs have all definitely held their weight. We're talking Cy-Fair, and we'll have highlights tomorrow of Cy-Fair's big win over Cy Creek tonight, 41-7, the final there. Cy-Fair is, 10-0, and nobody's really seemed to talk about Cy-Fair because you have the Cadies and North Shores and the Atascocitas, and, all of those teams are going to be bundled up into Division I, 6A Division I, Region 3. So only one of those teams can reach the state semifinals. They're all going to be playing each other, basically kind of starting in the second round, I think.
Which I like that. I
yeah.
like that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully those games will be on some Friday nights so we can have highlights on our Saturday morning show. We always on the show root for the big games or really all playoff games to hopefully be on
like
Friday.
Them Thursdays and Fridays,
yes,
please.
The Saturday games don't help us much because
Cut us
we
some
can't.
slack.
Yeah, but I don't really remember what my original point was there. But
we have fun.
Yeah, no, in Cy-Fair, LJ Johnson had a touchdown run tonight where he dragged 3 defenders with him for about 5 or 6 yards into the end zone. That kid is unbelievable. All the major college football programs are trying to get this kid on campus. Yeah, he is the real deal. He won an MVP bobblehead from us a few weeks ago, and do not sleep on Cy-Fair in the playoffs. I'll just say that. I think everybody seems to think that the Region 3, 6A Division I representative, the big boys will be either Katy or North Shore, and those two will battle it out. But don't sleep on Cy-Fair just yet,
I mean, they've done it once.
Yes.
In the past
not long
4
ago.
years, they've done it once.
Not long ago either, yeah. But we expected all those programs to be, and they have held their end of the bargain all season long. But I think my original point was some of these other programs are definitely, and especially if they get into the 6A Division II teams, look out. There are some programs that were not used to making deep playoff runs that I certainly think are capable. And Humble, as we were mentioning a minute ago, Humble, if Humble goes to 6A Division II, I'm not sure I'd have to look at all that stuff. But if Humble does, that's a team that can definitely make some noise, yeah, for sure.
So if you had to pick any of these teams that we're not really used to seeing in the playoffs, or that's not the teams that we follow all the time, if you had to pick one of them to make a big old playoff run,
wow,
who's going to be the person that you put your money on? Which we don't do that here.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. Honestly, I'd kind of have to see the brackets. I would love to say Katy Tompkins or Fort Bend Travis, but both of those are headed in that, that region of death, 6A Division I.
It is the region of death.
And those two play each other in the first round, so it's unfortunate. Because those have been two of the great stories this season. As we talked about programs kind of finding their own. But unfortunately, one of those teams is going to be out. They play Thursday night. They won't even make it till next Friday, unfortunately. That's a potential game of the week for next week's show. Don't hold me to that, but
we can't wait to see the bracket. Is what we're trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah, we're ready to start seeing some matchups. Coaches, please tweet them to us if you will.
As soon as possible.
Yes. But to answer your question, I don't know entirely. I haven't thought this one entirely through.
I'll ask you again next week.
Yes. All right. Yeah, let's do that. I will answer that question next week. Especially once I know who's won in the first round.
That, and we've got to put together like a final Inside High School Sports team. Like we'll pick out some of our favorite players from 5 and 6A.
Right. Okay.
And
yeah.
everyone's fair game.
Okay.
We're gonna do that next week.
Fun.
Or the week after next. We'll do that in the next couple of weeks. I've told Diggs
like
for my other show the same one. Oh, I like it. That's gonna be the warm up then. Haha, we've done it. We've been trying to figure out what we're gonna do for the warm up for the next few weeks.
The all warm up team.
So we've kind of touched on a few things that are going to be on the show tomorrow. What else will be on tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. on KHU11 for Chevy's Inside High School Sports?
So kind of looking at the rundown here, we talked about Dobie, Dobie's big win. Fort Bend Elkins, an impressive win over Fort Bend Austin. That game was played in an absolute monsoon, as most of the games were on Thursday night. But shout out to Fort Bend Austin. Fort Bend Austin still playoff bound. Troy O'Meary, the Texas wide receiver commit and the star wide receiver for the Austin Bulldogs, he had to kind of step in and play pinch hit and basically play quarterback last night for Austin.
Holy moly.
And yeah, played pretty well. So, impressive work there.
I have a bone to pick with him, by the way. We went down and we did a recruiting trail with him when he was going to A&M, and then he switched on us. What is this? Come on.
Yeah,
But good job.
it happens. Big win last night for Ike. Big come from behind win. Eisenhower knocks off Dekaney. Now both of those two teams will have to wait till Saturday afternoon, and the spring Aldine MacArthur game will determine which of these two teams, Dekaney and Eisenhower, that spring MacArthur game will determine these two teams' playoff fate. But that was a thriller of a game, and we'll have highlights of that. Klein Kane, as we mentioned, the big win over Klein Oak to get into the playoffs. We'll have highlights of Klein Kane. C.E. King with a win tonight over LaPorte to get into the playoffs. Bryson Washington, the star defensive back, had an unbelievable touchdown catch at playing wide receiver tonight for C.E. King.
Okay, homie.
He's a recruiting trail alum for us.
We're going to just start calling out all y'all by name. You better start doing big things every week.
And, we mentioned Cy-Fair, obviously. You'll want to see highlights of that. And Lamar Consolidated win over Katy Pato. So Lamar Consolidated headed to the playoffs. We'll have highlights of the Mustangs' big win. Unfortunately, our plan for Game of the Week, and sometimes things happen. Our plan for Game of the Week was New Caney and Porter. Unfortunately, we had some issues with one of our photographers. Wasn't able to get out there tonight, so kind of a last-minute deal. Couldn't really move things around at that point, so we won't have highlights of New Caney's big win, but New Caney wins a district title.
Here.
Yes, we will talk about them here, and hopefully maybe highlights next week. I think New Caney plays Foster in the first round, which don't hold me to that, but I think that's correct, and that would be a very enticing big-time first-round matchup.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. But Robert, so as we're closing up the regular season, what do you want to say so far about 2019?
Again, just how cool it is to see all these new programs, these second-year programs, kind of taking the bull by the horns, and no fear from these guys. A lot of the players, a lot of the starters on these second-year programs too, they're not seniors. Mm-hmm. There are some seniors. Luke Pardee, the quarterback at Klein Kane, for example, who won a bobblehead a couple weeks ago. There are some guys like that, but you look at some of these rosters, and there's a lot of sophomores playing, a lot of juniors playing. So those programs are only going to get better and better over the next year or two. So, that combined with, some of the resurgences, it's fun seeing Dobie back. Dobie was such a great program for a long time. It's fun seeing Dobie with a 9-1 season. So, that's really, to me, the big takeaway is some of the teams we didn't expect to be here, and now they'll get their shot at the big boys, and the big boys will have their shot at playing deep into December. So it's going to be a fun next 6 weeks for sure.
Well, it's time to get the second season or the third season. Is it the third season or second season?
I guess it depends who you talk to. If you consider district play the second season,
I guess it's time for the third season to start, and we will have.
Let's call it the postseason.
Well, okay, fine. We'll get technical. Well, it's time for the postseason to start. It's been so fun covering these district races the past few weeks here on the fifth quarter, but we will have all the postseason action starting next week. You can catch highlights of this week's and the final district games on Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports tomorrow morning on KHU 11 at 8:30 a.m. I'm Ashlea Bullington, and this is Robert Sheik, and thank you so much for watching the fifth quarter.